Many narcissists will act like they want to change, but they really don't. But they act like they want to change in order to give you false hope so that you won't get rid of them, so that you'll continue to play the game. This is one of the most common ones I get asked in just about every seminar I teach, every podcast that I do. And that is basically, I've come to realize that my partner's a narcissist or that my parents are narcissists. I'm getting help for my problems, but they refuse to get help for their problems. They refuse to talk about what they've done and what they need to change. We just don't have those discussions. So what do I do? Is there any way to get them to look at their complex trauma or to look at understanding complex trauma? Is there anything I can do that would help them or make them want to change? Such a common question, but such an important question to think through, because so many people in recovery go through this. They all of a sudden realize they're in a relationship or that their parents who've been wanting them to get help, all of that. But all of a sudden now when you want to talk about your complex trauma and that they need to change, they need to look at stuff, they shut down. They don't want to go there. They refuse to go there. They keep basically saying, you're the sick one. You're the one that needs help. Just focus on you. We're not even going to do anything about us. And that presents huge problems. So that's what I want to explore. And this is going to be one of those questions I'm going to have to build kind of a scaffolding of a bunch of different pieces before I actually get to answering the question. So be patient with me as we work through laying out a framework to really understand and approach this question well. Let's begin with the bottom line. So there's a couple pieces in this bottom line that are important to understand. The first is this. You can't force anybody to change. That's the bottom line. But I grew up hearing you can take a horse to water, but you can't force them to drink. But you can always put salt in their oats. In other words, you can do things that make them thirsty, that make them want to drink. And the same is true in recovery. Now, what you have to understand up front is the way to get your parents or your partner to want to understand complex trauma, to look at their complex trauma, to be willing to change, is not to nag at them. It's not to say, oh, I just took this course and you guys need to take it. Or I just watched this video, you guys caused my trauma. You're the problem. That's just probably going to backfire. That's going to lead to really a negative response, a defensiveness, and a total shutdown. So don't think you can nag them into change. Don't think you can take shots at them and make them want to change. Don't think that you can just confront them and tell them they're messed up and that they're all of a sudden going to want to change. The best way to get them to be open to change is if they see you changing. They see you getting healthy. They see you responding differently. All of a sudden, that's going to influence them, impact them, and potentially cause them to go, maybe I need to look at some stuff. So you have to really realize that the way to get my partner, my parents to be willing to consider change is that I have to be the change. I have to role model it. I have to change. And that potentially will put salt in their oats. That will get them a thirst, a curiosity to learn more and to be maybe willing to change. One of the things that you might do if you're in a relationship and don't do, but let's get this in balance, is this. Don't just idly threaten them saying, if you don't change, if you don't look at your stuff, if you don't watch these videos, I'm out of here. But you don't really mean it. That is really going to backfire. But you may need to sit down with your partner and say, unless I see some changes in you, some willingness to learn, this relationship's not going to work and I'm going to have to consider moving on. And that leads us to the rationale for that, which is the second bottom line. And that is realizing that a relationship can only work or a relationship can only be healthy if both people are getting healthy in their individual life, which means that both people are willing to change. Both people are willing to work on their stuff. Both people are willing to learn and to grow as individuals. If only one person is changing, but the other person is remaining in their behaviors that aren't healthy, the one person being willing to change isn't going to create a healthy relationship. They can want it desperately. They can be willing to grow and change as much as possible. But if the other person is not willing to change, you will never end up with a healthy relationship. It is impossible. That is so important to understand, because so many people keep hoping that if they just change a little bit more, then the relationship will get healthy. No, it takes two to tangle. The other person, if they're not willing to change, the relationship will not work. And so that's why you may have to go to the other person once you realize they're not willing to change and say, hey, if you're not willing to change, then this relationship is done. Now, let me give you a big picture here as we build this scaffolding. What I have done much marriage counseling over the years, and what I have realized is when you get two people with complex trauma in a relationship, you end up with three sets of baggage. So person A comes in with their own individual baggage from their trauma from their past. Person B comes in with their individual baggage from their trauma from their past. Then as they live together, they create a third set of baggage, unresolved conflicts between them, unresolved issues. And so what typically happens when a couple comes to see me for marriage counseling is they're focused on the third set of baggage, the problems that have developed between them. They're hoping that I will give them tools, which usually is magical fix for the third set of baggage, and then their relationship will be fine. So in their mind, the issue is the problems that have developed between them. If they could just fix them, the relationship would be good. What I want them to realize is the third set of baggage came out of baggage A, baggage B that hasn't been dealt with, that hasn't been resolved. So the way to fix the third set of baggage is not some magical little tools, although we're going to have some tools. The way to fix the third set of baggage is person A's got to work on their baggage, person B's got to work on their baggage. And as they get healthier, then they can resolve the third set of baggage. So the bottom line is this: you can't fix problems in a relationship unless both people individually are willing to work on their individual stuff. Once they get to a healthy enough point, then they will learn tools to resolve some of the third set of baggage. But if they don't work on their own set of stuff, they're just going to create more and more third type of baggage. They cannot, just by magical tools, make that third set of baggage go away, because they're going to keep generating more and more because they haven't dealt with their own stuff. So what then are some of these foundation pieces to a healthy relationship? What is it that you have to work on and create in order to have a healthy relationship? And I say this because many people think there's some little magic fix to create a magic healthy relationship. No, a healthy relationship comes out of two people getting healthy and building a foundation of certain characteristics in the relationship. So getting healthy means both people have a humility. And that means both people are wanting to change, are wanting to grow, are willing to look at their stuff, willing to own their stuff. They don't go to this shame place that I got to make it everybody else's fault. I'm afraid to go there because it might make me look bad and everybody will reject me. They're willing to go there. They have to have this humility. But then a relationship has to have mutual respect, that you respect me as much as I respect you. It's not lopsided. It's not a one-way respect. Third, we have to be able to attach, to form secure, healthy connection. And most people coming out of complex trauma have never had secure attachment and don't know how to have secure attachment. Unless they learn that, they're never going to have a healthy relationship. Next, That includes you have to learn to be able to connect with yourself. If you're not able to connect with yourself in a secure way, you're not going to be able to connect with others. So learning connection is so critical. Next, if we don't learn to be able to trust each other, we'll never have a healthy relationship. So we have to be trustworthy, safe people where we can build trust. If we don't learn to accept each other for who we are, that doesn't mean we accept the harmful pieces. It means we accept the basic personality of each other, how we're wired, how we think, how we go about life. If we don't learn to accept who we are, we're never going to have a healthy relationship. If we don't learn to respect each other's boundaries and give each other space and learn when we are to meet each other's needs and when we have to let the other person meet their own needs. If we don't learn healthy boundaries, we'll never have a healthy relationship. And so that includes we both develop autonomy. We live together, we learn to connect with each other, but we're two separate people. We figure out how to do that. Then we have to be authentic. No mask, no role playing, no fawning. We have to be able to be real, to be genuine, to be open, to be vulnerable, and communicate openly. Those are the foundation pieces of a healthy relationship. Those only happen if both people are working to get healthy. So, having said that, I always have to take clients to this realistic assessment. If you are in a relationship with a narcissist who is refusing to change, or with parents who you realize are narcissistic and they're just never going to own their stuff, what is the probability that they will be willing to look at their stuff, that they will be willing to change if they are a pure narcissist? So let me just again say this. What comes out of complex trauma where you have to survive is narcissistic tendencies. I have to put me ahead of others in order to survive. In cases of severe trauma, you end up with a pure narcissist where it's all about me. I don't care about anybody else. I don't have any conscience. I don't have any empathy. It has to be only about me, and I have to look good all the time. There's not a lot of just pure narcissists. So when you evaluate your parents or your partner, yes, it's possible they could be a pure narcissist, but it's more likely that they will have narcissistic tendencies. So people with narcissistic tendencies have a higher probability of changing than a pure narcissist. The chances of a pure narcissist changing are extremely low, because for them to be willing to change, they'd have to face the deep subconscious well of shame that has been driving them for years. And most are afraid to go there. Those who just have narcissistic tendencies will resist change, will try to provide justifications to not go there, but over time they will be willing to go there. So let me talk in terms of more of a pure narcissist. What you will find is everybody with a narcissist has basically, a narcissist has developed relationships with people that have enabled them to be a narcissist. They've been a mirror. They've allowed the narcissist to rescue them. They've said nice things back to the narcissist. They've looked good. They've taken care of the narcissist's emotions. They've covered for the narcissist. It's been a great deal for the narcissist. The only person who has suffered are the people close to the narcissist that have been used, that have been abused. But it's been a great deal for the narcissist. So what I want you to be aware of is a lot of people think, okay, I'm in a relationship with a narcissist. I need to be a good partner. I need to stay true. I need to hang in there. I need to make a few more sacrifices. Then maybe the narcissist will see all the sacrifices and be willing to change. No. All of your enabling behavior is just convincing the narcissist that their deal is working. Why bother changing? I can basically use and abuse people and everybody bows to me and I get a wonderful life. Why bother changing? So the more you enable a narcissist by making more sacrifices, giving them one more chance, the more you're just feeding their belief that they don't need to change. They're not going to change unless you take away the benefits that they have of being a narcissist. And that means you stop enabling. That means that you no longer play their game. So understand that. That is so important. Next thing, many narcissists will act like they want to change, but they really don't. But they act like they want to change in order to give you false hope so that you won't get rid of them, so that you'll continue to play the game. So here's some of the things that a narcissist will do to give you false hope. They will agree to go to counseling with you. You've confronted them. You've just had a blow up. You say, we need help. Unless you go to counseling, it's over with. They will go to counseling with you and you have hope. But what happens in the counseling is, as a narcissist, they are very smooth. They are very charming. They're very logical. They get the counselor on their side. They convince the counselor that you're the problem, that they're the sane one. And they can spin a picture that the counselor believes, and pretty soon what has happened is you feel ambushed because now the counselor is on the side of the narcissist against you as the problem. It backfires big time. Another thing that they will do is they will take a course. So they could take our Lift course. They could read books on relationships, read books on trauma, take a course on trauma, and you get your hopes up. Oh, they want to learn. They want to learn. Well, not for the reasons you think. They don't want to learn so they can change. They don't want to learn so they can see what they're doing. They want to learn so they learn the language, so they know how to use it as a weapon against you. So they know how to twist it so that they can now play with your thinking and distort your thinking and get you to see that it's your problem. That happens so often. Next thing that they can do is you have a big blow up, you threaten if you don't get help. And so we got to go to counseling. So they go to counseling. But in their mind, it's not to change. It's to manage the crisis. Because right now, the relationship in their mind is in a crisis. They're threatening to leave me. I have to placate them. I have to make a few little changes, do what the counselor says to, spend a bit more time with them, talk through problems a bit more, communicate a bit more to calm them down. And as soon as everything's kind of smoothed over and calmed down, then they regress back to their old behaviors. So they don't change their core issues. They make a few surface Band-Aid changes to calm you down and get you off their back. So that's another tactic that they would do. Now, I need to point out that a lot of people, when they raise this with me, they think that the solution would be to go to their narcissist partner and say, I'm not happy. I'm doing all the work here. I am changing. You're not doing anything. You're not looking at your stuff. And they think if I just have a very open, clear discussion with them where I communicate very clearly, that they'll hear me. And they'll go, oh, you're right. I never thought of that. Okay, yep. I see you're doing all the work. I need to start changing. And they'll own it. All they need is you to say it clearly enough to convince them. But you want to know what usually happens with them? It doesn't work like you thought it would. You have this wonderful discussion and they take what you say and twist it to make you the bad guy. So what you were hoping was this going to be this open, honest discussion that would lead them to see they need to own their part ends up being you pouring out your heart, they taking that, twisting it, and using it against you. That typically happens. Now, I got to add another piece here. Let's say you do get to a point where you decide they're unwilling to change. I have to end this. So you communicate that to the narcissist and you say, it's done. Here's what's been happening. Here's what I've noticed. Here's the chances I've given you. Here's what I've communicated to you. You still have done nothing. It's over. What they may try to do, and you need to be prepared for this, is contact you a week later or something and say, I'm ready to have a discussion. I'm ready to talk. And you get your hopes up. You go, oh, maybe, okay, finally they're going to be willing to look at their stuff. Not usually the case. Usually they want a discussion so they can try to influence you. So they're looking for an opening to be able to talk, to be able to plant seeds in your brain, to influence your thinking so that you take them back. You give them one more chance. They will make false promises. They will twist things a little bit, trying to get you to give them one more chance to take them back. But they're still not willing to change at a deep level. So all of these different games narcissists will play. Now let me add another piece that has to be factored in here when it comes to ending a relationship with a pure narcissist as far as a partner or parents. This is not a minor little decision like what color of socks do I wear today. This is a major life-altering decision. This is not a decision that can be made lightly. It has to be thought through so closely, carefully, methodically. And so I never want to trivialize the importance of this decision. It's further complicated by the fact that often children are involved, and you got to factor that in. Then there's financial considerations. If you separate, what are you going to do to pay your bills, to get another place to stay? And then another factor can come in, and that is what happens if they react very badly and they become violent, if they threaten to take the kids, if they go to court and totally misrepresent me and take my kids. Like, this could go really, really bad in a whole bunch of different directions if they don't respond well. And there's a chance they won't respond well. And then for some people, there's another factor, and that is they've got years of religious teaching and family beliefs about the sanctity of marriage, that you don't divorce, that is wrong. And they have a whole bunch of false guilt around doing that, or what they might do to the children by divorcing. So there's a lot of pieces to this decision that you need help with a trained professional who really specializes in these things to help you think them through. Now, I got to add another piece to this, and it's an important underlying issue. What I have found is a lot of times when people ask me this question in a seminar, they want to know what I think, and they're willing to follow a lot of my advice, except one piece of it, which would be, I think you should end the relationship. What I find is their primary concern in asking me this question about ending a relationship or what to do with a narcissist is they're hoping I'm going to give them a new piece of information they haven't had yet that will magically give them a solution to fix the relationship. They are not prepared to end the relationship. They're doing everything possible, even picking my brain to try to find a way to magically fix the relationship. So what I have come to realize is this: if your bottom line is you are not willing to end the relationship, even though it is proven to be unhealthy, even though the other person has proven they are unwilling to change, the problem is no longer the narcissist. The problem is you. Why are you unwilling to end it? What issue is it that you have? Because that's really the problem now. What issue is it that you have that is preventing you from ending it? Until you solve that, figure that out, and work on that and change that, you're going to keep asking people for magical fixes, but you're never going to get them. So let's go to, what are your options? Once you get to a point that you think they're not willing to change, well, I got to add one more piece, and that is a lot of people that ask me this question, I come to realize they're not fully convinced at that point that they're asking me the question that the person is unwilling to change. They're starting to suspect they're not willing to change, but they're not fully convinced yet. So what I would say to people is this. It typically takes 6 months, a year to really become convinced a person is not willing to change. So you need to be able to communicate clearly with that person that you're not happy, that you're doing this work, you don't see them doing this work, that you need them to be able to be willing to face their stuff. You need to really lay it out clearly, not in an angry, disrespectful, hurtful way. Just, this is what I'm seeing. These are the facts. This is what I'm working with. Then you need to watch what they do. And that's going to take 6 months to a year to really be sure that, because they may try to make little changes to make you happy. And so you might get your hopes up a little bit, but over 6 months to a year, you're going to realize if those changes are lasting changes, if they're willing to work on the deep stuff. It's going to take time. You have to be willing to give yourself time. But you have to have those boundaries in place, those things that you're looking for as marks of lasting change, of deep change. And this is where I would say you also would be wise to have a third party, an objective party, who again is experienced in looking for lasting change, to be able to evaluate, is this person willing to change? Is this person actually changing? So important. Okay, so let's say you're pretty sure the relationship is in deep trouble. You're pretty sure this person's not totally willing to change, but you want one last kick at the can. What are your options? So I usually spell out 3 options for couples. So you've had your open, honest discussion. You realize there's 3 sets of baggage, and that you continually are triggering and adding to your 3rd set of baggage. So if this relationship has any chance, you both have to work individually on your own personal baggage before you even attempt to get to your 3rd baggage. So what are your options in doing that? Well, you could try to stay together, number 1, and just focus on yourself. Now that is the trickiest, the most difficult, and seldom works for people. In order for it to work, you need clear boundaries. We are basically we're going to be roommates in the same house. We're going to talk about some kind of administrative aspects of the relationship, some parenting issues, but we're going to give each other space. We're not going to expect stuff from each other. We're going to not have the same amount of communication time together, even sexual stuff together. We are going to be roommates focusing on ourselves. So like I said, this seldom works because what usually happens is you still trigger each other. You still are creating a bigger and bigger pile of 3rd baggage. And what begins to happen is that 3rd set of baggage causes you to be constantly involved in conflict, constantly involved in trying to resolve conflict. The relationship just becomes a pain. It becomes a burden. There's no fun in it anymore. It is constant work. It is constant dealing with pain and frustration and anger. And so for many people, staying together in the same house, it just is not work. Now, beware though, that a narcissist might say, I think we can still stay together and work on our stuff separately. I'll respect your boundaries. I'll do this. And they're again just trying to get your hopes up. But they are trying to forestall, prolong the relationship and you dumping them. And it's just part of their game. Be aware of that. Option number 2. You get to the point where you go, this relationship is not going to work. You're in your cortex. You've checked the evidence. You've given it 6 months to a year. You've spelled out what you need them to do. They've done little bits, but there's not been lasting change. There's not been deep change. It is time to call it. Now, let me add a couple things. Do not do this unless you've carefully thought it through and you plan to stick to it. The worst thing to do is to make a rash, impulsive decision in your limbic brain and just say, I'm done, this relationship's over. And then 2 weeks later, you're lonely, you feel guilty, and you ask to get back together again. I have seen countless couples do that. It just reinforces to the narcissist that your words mean nothing, your boundaries mean nothing, you always will come back to them. So why should they get serious about anything? So make sure you think it through. And that means think through money, think through housing, think through children, think through legal, think through, do I have a support group? Do I have safety? Do I have a job? Do I have a place to live? All of those things have to be thought through. So the key thing is this: do not make decisions out of your limbic brain. Make decisions out of your cortex based on the facts. So what many people do is the facts say they're unwilling to change, but I'm still so in love. He's such a wonderful person in the beginning. I think I should give him another chance. You're in your limbic brain. You're not looking at the evidence. Until you're in your cortex looking only at evidence with the limbic brain totally out of the picture, you probably will not make a wise decision. Now, I need to add another piece here. Most people with complex trauma have always longed to be loved, but have never been loved. They've always felt that somehow they have to earn love. That if a relationship is to work, that most of it is on their shoulders to make it work. That's always been their unbalanced perspective on relationships. So understand that getting ready to end a relationship and say to the other person it's done, what you're basically doing is triggering your own stuff. Now you're going to be alone. That's going to trigger your shame. That's going to trigger your longing to be loved. That's going to be triggering your fear of abandonment. That's going to breaking any connection you have and taking you back to that feeling of no connection. That's going to create false guilt. It's going to trigger all kinds of your issues. So what happens for many people when they come to end a relationship is they trigger their own stuff. It is so overwhelmingly powerful that it paralyzes them. So part of them knows they need to end the relationship, but now part of them is feeling paralyzed. Part of them is running away from ending the relationship. Part of them is feeling a strong pull to once again fawn. If I just work a little harder, if I just try one more thing, beware that that will probably happen. So what you will need to do is find a way when your limbic brain gets triggered to do the opposite of what it's pulling you to do. To go back to your cortex, look at the evidence and say, I got to stick to the plan. But you might need somebody to help you stick to the plan, to keep you motivated, to help you overcome the paralysis that's going to come when it's time to end the relationship. Now, there is a third option. I've seen a few couples try this. I've only seen it work in, I think, one situation. And that is couples that take a 3 to 6 month separation. And they basically say, we're going to still be together, but we're going to live in separate apartments, houses, and just focus on our stuff. We're going to make out very rudimentary, basic rules about seeing the kids, paying bills, settling money stuff, sex stuff. We're not going to communicate. We're basically going to live separately, and the entire focus is going to be on ourselves. Then after 3 to 6 months, then we're going to start dating again and decide whether we want to try to make another go of it. So that is the third option. Like I say, some have tried it. Again, seldom works, but I have seen it work. Now, again, I got to give two main issues that I want you to be aware of as you proceed with trying to break up. Shame and false guilt. False guilt around bad teaching from your family, your religion, about divorce, about how it'll affect the children, about the sanctity of marriage, that families stick together, that a woman's role is to make the man happy, whatever. False guilt, you're going to need help in working through that, but understand it is not true guilt. It is false guilt. It is based on bad teaching. Secondly, shame, not feeling good enough. One more time. I failed again in a relationship. I'll never have a good relationship. I'm the problem. I'm not good enough. So be aware that those are powerful, powerful underlying issues that will get triggered. Now, one of the things that happens for some is they realize that they are in a relationship with a narcissist. The narcissist is not going to change, but for now they have no option but to stay in that relationship. What do? This is tricky, but some have to learn how to navigate this. And there's no perfect way to navigate it, but number one, try to create boundaries within the existing relationship that increase safety, that result in fewer triggering events, and that allow you to work on yourself a little bit more. That's what you want to aim for. Secondly, get your focus off of trying to change the narcissist, trying to get the narcissist to own their stuff. Get your focus on yourself, changing yourself. Asking yourself, why was I attracted to a narcissist in the first place? What is it in me? What are my issues that cause me to be attracted to a narcissist? What is my relationship template from a childhood that causes me to be attracted to a narcissist? Because if I don't work on my stuff, I could end the relationship with a narcissist. But if I don't work on my stuff, I'm just going to go find another narcissist. So I'm part of the problem. So I'm going to create some space in the existing relationship to focus on me, to work on me. Now, before I end, let me just give you a couple observations to end this question with. Things that are just important to be aware of. Many people that end up in relationships with narcissists not only have that lopsided thing that they need to do all the work and earn love, and a healthy relationship means they need to give up more of their needs and make more sacrifices. That's a big issue, codependency, their own shame issues. But there's often a second issue for many people, and that is they have always had a fantasy element in their childhood when it comes to relationships. So they have felt like an outsider. They felt not good enough. So they created fantasies in their mind where they're going to find a knight in shining armor, that they're going to just do these magical little sweet romantic things, and you're just going to give them lots of sex and they'll have a perfect relationship. You're just going to give them children. They're going to have a perfect relationship. So you always have this fantasy, magical solution as a basis of your thinking as to the way to a healthy, perfect relationship. Catch that fantasy stuff in yourself. Become aware of some of your fantasy, magical thinking around relationships. That you're going to need to work on. Secondly, if you end a relationship, be prepared that it will result in a time of grieving, because you are going to experience a loss. There's going to be a part of you that's going to be relieved the relationship's done. And they're going to be happy that you took that step. But there's going to be a part of you that's sad, that's going to miss them, that's going to grieve them. So be prepared that you're going to have a roller coaster of emotions, that you are going to have times where you want to get back together. Your brain's going to bounce all over again. I wonder if we tried this, it might work. That's where you're going to need somebody to help you process that stuff. And finally, most people cannot successfully break up with a narcissist if they don't have a good support group. You need a healthy support group. You need people in your life who are going to walk beside you and be there to help meet your needs. So, as you plan to end a relationship with a narcissist, make sure you have a healthy support group, a healthy surrogate family as part of your recovery. Well, that's a very lengthy answer to a question that I get asked a lot. I hope it helps you. I hope it helps you think through the many pieces of this very important question.